From the soundstage of the digital media classroom here at Wellington High School, we'd like to welcome you once again to Dialogue with the Dukes. The show this morning is being brought to you, as always, by the Patricia Lindley Center for the Performing Arts, located in the McCormick Middle School, adjacent to Wellington High School, and also by the Wellington Music Store, located at 117 West Herrick here in downtown Wellington. Our helpers this morning are Kevin Rakowski and Tom Logar. This morning we have the opportunity to preview the winter play being put on by the Wellington Drama Club and Community Theater. It's called A Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life, a live radio show. It's going to be produced, or actually to the public, on December 5th through 7th at the Patricia Lindley Center. The doors open at 6:30 and the play begins at 7 o'clock. The admission is $10 for adults and $5 for seniors, students, and children. This morning we have the opportunity to interview both the director and the manager of the Patricia Lindley Center, Mr. Dave Conklin, the director, and Ms. Dottie Cianciola, the manager of the Patricia Lindley Center. Dave, it's most of us know what the movie and the play It's a Wonderful Life is about, and actually I believe that Wellington has put this show on at least 3 or 4 times over the years, but this time it's different because the name of the play is actually It's a Wonderful Life, a live radio show. Briefly summarize what the play is all about and the fact that we're doing a live radio version supposedly at this time.
Yeah, I think everybody knows It's a Wonderful Life. Jimmy Stewart's depiction of George Bailey back in 1946 when it first came out, Frank Capra's film. Just a wonderful story of transformation. George Bailey thinks he's a total loser but at the beginning and throughout the story, but by the end he appreciates not only his own life, but also
is over. Thank you very much.
His family and community at a much deeper level. And the onstage version of it, which we've done three iterations of the whole show itself, and it was a major undertaking each time, and we had mixed reviews. The scope, one of the most, and she was very nice about it, but she said, certain movies just aren't made for the stage. And I understand. We could have worked things out more, but it was so, I don't know, it was such an undertaking that when the radio show iteration of it came along, and by the way, it was the Houston Metropolitan Theater last year, who's one of the managers of that theater is Mike Mullins, a Wellington graduate. We've actually, you've interviewed him on the web success stories. They did it last winter. And when I was deciding whether to do the full show or the radio show, I asked him, so how'd yours go over? He said, it was great. And he sent me a photo of it and of their set, and it did. It really had a magical quality to it. And so I thought, let's give it a try. We did the radio show with Christmas Carol earlier and had a great time with that. So we're now going with this one and experiencing a lot of the energy and the meaning and the character development that happens in the original, but now it's the play within a play in the radio station itself, which brings a lot of other things to it. So it's just it's a wonderful undertaking, and it does justice to the movie itself.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. It is actually a play within a play, because not only are we telling the story of It's a Wonderful Life, but now we're doing the quote-unquote live radio version. So what problems or iterations come up because we're not only doing the movie or the play, but now we're doing the live radio version. So it's a play within a play. How does that conform to our stage here at the Patricia Lindley Center?
Well, it's awesome. I mean, one, as far as logistics and the implementation of the play, you have one set as opposed to 20 some, which the movie created for us. So there's a lot less, hustle and bustle and moving around in that regard. But then from the actor's point of view, now you have an actor who plays, he's George Bailey, but he's also Jake Lawrence, the radio personality that plays George Bailey, and he's also one of the singers in the commercials that are part of the radio show. So from it's a much broader range for an actor, for all of them that are doing it too, and that's nice too. We have one actor who's, in addition to being the stage manager in the radio, is part of the Foley Table, which you guys will talk about. So it gives a lot more opportunity for that. And with lighting now, we are using the creativity for lighting suggests the tone and mood of scenes that are no longer acted out through blocking and staging. So we need to convey a different setting through the way we use lighting and colors and music and transitions. And so the radio show actually, even though we have less physical movement of actors in terms of being in this setting and that setting and that setting, we now have to convey that movement and that attitude and tone through lighting and sound and music, and it's just an awesome opportunity.
Well, the actors themselves, I guess I have to ask the question, how many actors are actually involved with the production, and where do they come from?
There are over 20, I think it's 21 or so actors, and they come from elementary school all the way through community to where I think we have some golden Buckeyes that are participating in it too. And so what drama club and community theater bring together are the young and the old, a great cross section of the Wellington community. As a matter of fact, one of our actors is from the Keystone area as well. So that's what I love about this too. It's truly a community production and all levels, and that's just on stage. When you go behind the scenes, you have a great range of participation there, from young to old, and it's just a truly community event.
Dottie Cianciola, the manager of the Patricia Lindley Center, is intimately involved with this play, because what's different about this play is that we have a sound effects table, and it's known as a Foley Table. So my first question to you, Dottie, is it is a radio show.
Yes.
But now in the old time radios back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, I think radio mysteries and things like that actually ended about in the 70s. But that was brought up in the 40s. These new radio shows came up, but you had to have sound effects. You couldn't just have actors sitting there reading something, but to bring it to life,
right,
so to speak, we had to have sound effects. So how are the sound effects with the Foley Table, which we'll talk about in just a second, but how are the sound effects integrated with the play itself?
Well, we can use both digital sound effects now, along with the Foley Table, which takes it to a whole different level than, say, back in the 1940s. It's a lot of hands-on experimentation, creativity to make it happen. We're having a lot of fun. We're coming up with different things, like, say, a comb representing crickets, that kind of thing. And then we can also take the digital aspect of it and enhance what they're doing on the table, which is something different from back in that live radio time.
Well, we've been talking about the Foley Table, so let's define what the Foley Table is. Jack Foley, Jack Donovan Foley is the gentleman's name. This was back in the 20s. He, in the era of silent films, he was deciding that, or kind of made the observation that the silent films were great, but where there was no sound, it was very hard to keep the people in the theater interested. If you see a railroad, a train going down the railroad track and Charlie Chaplin hanging out the side or something, there was no actual sound effect going on, and so the people actually had to imagine. And many times they had piano playing in the background, but again, it didn't really necessarily put forth the idea of the sound effects going on in the actual setting. So he developed something known as the Foley Table. And what the Foley Table is, and this is something new compared to when we did A Christmas Carol 2 years ago, there's actually going to be a table actually out on the stage to the side of where the actors are, and as I say, developed by Jack Foley. These are just a whole table of different things that are involved with making it. You already talked about the fact that you can use a comb for crickets and things like that. But he developed so many of these sounds so that the radio play that was actually going on your radio, you could actually not only hear the actors talking, but there were sound effects going on, and that just brought a different dimension. So we know the need for developing sound effects. Now, how is this background, these sound effects, how are they actually translated into the play itself? And how is the Foley table integrated?
Well, the sound effects offer a time for transition between scenes. If they coordinate with the actors to make sure, whatever they're doing, the timing and everything is executed correctly. It creates depth to the play itself, I think. Mm-hmm. And it requires that the director, the actors, the tech team all work in close syncing of that to make it happen. Mm-hmm. So it's a challenge, it's exciting, mm-hmm. and fun.
This morning we have with us Miss Annalise Broom. Sorry, welcome. And we also have Hannah Fieglist. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Good. And we also have Audrey Blitz. Good morning, girls. These young ladies are working the show, It's a Wonderful Life, a live radio show, and they will be producing all of the sound effects that will be in this play. But first of all, we have a couple questions to ask. First of all, Annalise, we know that the performers actually have a script that they follow. Most of them have it totally memorized, some may not, but they actually have a script on their little tables in front of them for when they're actually doing the play itself. How do you actually know when to do the sound effects and coordinate between the three of you? How do you actually do the sound effects themselves?
For most of the play, we have a stand, and then we'll have a script on the stand so we can just read the script. But for some sound effects, we have to actually look at the actors because they'll mime, like they mime smoking a cigar or like punching, and we'll have to watch the actors and do it as they mime it. But yeah, for the most part, it's usually just on the script. We'll just read through the script and then wait for that sound to come out.
So you're actually sitting there with a script and turning pages and all that stuff and knowing exactly what comes in what order. Mm-hmm. Oh boy, that's got to be tough. Now, with Hannah, we know that this is the 21st century. This was back in the 20th century when they were actually doing this. In fact, this play actually takes place in 1946. So they didn't have all of the neat technical stuff that we do now. How do you actually coordinate the Foley table itself with the people that are up in the sound booth and all that stuff, using their computers and everything else to use all kinds of like wind effects and things like that? How do you actually coordinate between the table and the people up in the sound booth?
So we both have scripts and they kind of watch us or we'll watch them. We have an ice cracking noise and then water sloshing followed. So after I crack the ice, they know to click the water noise. So we watch each other and have it all written down in notes. So we
That must be awfully hard to actually get together with them up there and you down here. It's got to be extremely hard. Got to do a lot of practicing, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Well, the third member of our Patricia Lindley Tech Center team is Audrey. And Audrey, you are one of the actors in the play itself. And you are actually the stage manager for the radio play. Now, because you are an actor, you are also assisting both Hannah and Annalise in actually doing it. How do you actually go from, shall we say, actor to a assistant to the Foley girls?
So at parts where I'm not reading lines, I come over here and I just sit, and if there's like parts when they need more than two people to do, like shoes, one shoe like high heels, one just like a men's shoe, mm-hmm. I can help them with that. Right. So it'll be like three people doing everything, and then I just go back to my acting part and just kind of switch personalities in a way.
And so during the play itself, do you actually come over here to the table to assist them but you're actually an actor doing it. How is that actually played into the script itself?
Well, I'm very strict in the play, so
Okay.
when I come over here, they mostly know everything, but I have to act like I know what I'm doing, and
Oh,
I
okay.
know more than them. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're like, as the stage manager, you're like the boss of these two
Yes.
young ladies.
Yes.
I see. So you're actually like a director, per se, of the Foley Table itself.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Well, this morning, these three young ladies are going to actually give a demonstration of some of the sound effects that are actually going to take place in this play. So I'll just turn it over to these three young ladies, and they'll talk about the demonstrations that they're going to perform.
Okay, so one of the sound effects that we have is like a dialing phone. So we actually have a fake phone prop that you would hang on the wall, and then all you have to do is just, dial it like you would a normal phone, and we have to keep it close to the mic so everyone can hear it.
Another noise in the beginning is ice cracking, and we have cornflakes that you just crushed against the mic that make that noise.
Another noise is champagne cork being popped. So, syringe. You take this like syringe thing, and then you put your finger on the top, and then you pull it.
Well, that's very cool. And obviously, as you can see by the table here itself, you can see that there are, gosh, how many sound effects? Do you happen to know how many sound effects there are in the total play? Just a wild guess.
80.
80.
Of Foley, an additional 50 with the special.
Okay, there's help off
130.
camera. We have 80 sound effects here, and have another 50 up in the booth. So that has got to take an awful lot of coordination. And I'm certainly impressed with how you all, the three of you, the boss, the director, so to speak, are bossing these two young ladies and trying to get everything in order and knowing exactly how it comes. And as I say, it must be a heck of a coordination effort to work here in the 21st century doing something that was actually taking place in the 20th century. So it's very interesting. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this introduction to It's a Wonderful Life, a live radio play. It will be from the 5th of December to the 7th of December. Again, It's a Wonderful Life, a live radio show. The doors open at 6:30. The play actually begins at 7, and that's a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Admission is $10 for adults and $5 for seniors, students, and children. We'll be back again next week for another episode of Dialogue with the Dukes.